Good evening and thank you for joining me on Black News Tonight. I'm Marc Lamont Hill. We start off with coverage of the trial of 3 white men charged in the killing of Ahmaud Arbery. Today, jurors heard from the man who owns the home that Arbery was seen walking around before he was chased and killed. He said Arbery was not the only person who was captured walking around his home. BNC's Jay Clark reports.
In a 4-hour-long videotape deposition, Larry English said Ahmaud Arbery never damaged his property that was under construction and he never stole anything. English said he initially installed cameras around the home after things were stolen from his boat dock. But he said between 2019 and 2020, cameras captured numerous people, including children, on the property. In some instances, English called 911. Listen to how he describes one of the intruders.
I've got a trespasser there. He's a colored guy, got real curly looking hair, he's tattooed down both arms.
On February 23, 2020, Arbery was jogging through Satilla Shores, a majority white community. Gregory McMichael claims he recognized Arbery as one of the people seen inside English's home. Gregory, his son Travis, and neighbor William Bryan chased Arbery, claiming they were making a citizen's arrest. The chase ended with Arbery being shot and killed, and all 3 men later charged with murder. English testified he never spoke with the McMichaels about protecting his property.
Did you ever give them permission to go on your property, express permission?
No.
Did you ever personally tell the McMichaels about any prior incidents at your house?
Probably, I'm not sure.
Prosecutors say the McMichaels profiled Arbery and wrongfully assumed he was a criminal. Defense attorneys claim the McMichaels were protecting their community and killed Arbery in self-defense. Meanwhile,
the Right Reverend Al Sharpton managed to find his way into the back of the courtroom.
Defense attorney Kevin Goff took issue with Reverend Al Sharpton recently sitting inside the courtroom with Arbery's family.
I believe that's intimidating, and it's an attempt to pressure, could be consciously or unconsciously, an attempt to pressure or influence the jury. We don't want any more black pastors coming in here, or other Jesse Jackson, whoever was in here earlier this week.
Noticed him once and that was it. And the fact that nobody else even noticed that he was in here means that everybody complied with this court's rulings on sitting in this courtroom.
And Goff, I don't think Goff is really up to do the right thing.
I'm Dre Clark for Black News Tonight.
In a poll released by the Monmouth University, 43% of Republican identifying respondents say they oppose schools teaching the history of racism, while 5% of Democrats oppose the historical teaching of racism in public schools. 94% of Democrats were in favor. In the same survey, 78% of Republicans disapproved of teaching critical race theory. The teaching of critical race theory has been an ongoing issue. Most recently, North Dakota has advanced a bill to ban critical race theory following Virginia and other states. The defense resting its case in the murder trial of Kyle Rittenhouse, and there's a lot of criticism of the media coverage. Rittenhouse is charged with shooting 3 people at a protest last year. The protest was over the shooting of Jacob Blake in Kenosha, Wisconsin. 2 of the victims died. Many on Twitter outraged by this headline from the New York Times. In a tweet, the magazine highlights how Rittenhouse, quote, idolized law enforcement and went to Kenosha to, quote, play the role of police officer and medic. And Rittenhouse's so-called tears in the courtroom captured a lot of attention. NBA superstar LeBron James even criticizing the display of emotion and how it was covered in the media. He retweeted a clip from USA Today and he wrote himself, "What tears? I didn't see one. Man, knock it off." That boy ate some lemon heads before walking into court. Joining me now to talk more about this is Dr. Akil Houston. He's an associate professor of cultural and media at Ohio University. Big difference. I don't want them problems. Akil, thank you for joining me. When Mike Brown was killed by police in Ferguson, Missouri, headlines said that he, quote, was no angel. This is after he was killed. Meanwhile, some news outlets seem keen on making Rittenhouse relatable. What's your analysis of how the media portrays black victims versus white suspects?
Thank you for having me on. You know, one of the great challenge we have, this is a long historical thread. Black people and other folks on the margins are often criminals and suspects first. And hopefully through the process of the court system, we can be proven innocent. However, that's generally not the case. When Black people are tried or suspected of certain crimes, we always bear the burden of having to prove that we are not, in fact, guilty. And so the assumption is we are always guilty, whereas with white people, they get to maintain their humanity. And we're always taught to reserve judgment until due process has taken place. Meanwhile, Black folks, and as you pointed out, Mike Brown is deceased. And there were some reports that people said that he was menacing and he was monster-like, whereas when it's the other side in terms of white folks, they always get the benefit of doubt and at least have their humanity intact. So I am not surprised at this latest version of this very long historical thread.
When you compare media portrayals of white victims, suspects, and vigilantes even to their Black counterparts, there is this consistent pattern of bias. What do you think fuels it? I mean, I know we can say racism, white supremacy, we're on the same page with that, but let's drill down just a little bit more. What causes us to see this difference in how people are represented? And the reason I say that is because I think the easy analysis is that, yeah, there's some racist people in the room that say, let's make the white people look like this and the Black people look like that. But it seems to me it's something more pernicious than that. That in some ways people think they're making good faith representations. It seems like it'd be much easier if it was just a racist twirling his mustache in the room doing something bad.
Well, I think the challenge is that before we even utter a thought, before we say what comes to mind, our mind has already been primed by a media environment that really showcases Black, brown, basically the folks on the margin as criminal. When you see music video after music video, when you see television show after television show, film after film that have a very interesting commonality when it comes to the Black and brown experience, in many people's minds, this means that this is true. And of course, we could say, oh, it's a few bad apples, it's white supremacy, it's racism. But I think, as you pointed out, there's more there. If we think about the slave codes in this country that turned into the Black codes, there is this long history of Black people always being lesser than. So even though we fancy ourselves as being more progressive, more with the times, we may not say things as explicitly as maybe we once did, some of us, but those ideas are still there. So it's sort of interesting. It's like one writer says, it's difficult to fight an enemy that has outposts in your head. So we've already been primed. Some folks call it implicit bias, but we've already been primed to see Black and brown folks through a particular lens. So even though we are not often the ones who have committed certain crimes, there's always this suspicion. Whereas, again, white folks get to maintain a sense of humanity. I think one of the more glaring examples was Dylan Roof. After shooting up a church, they had the humanity to take the young man to get something to eat and care for him. Whereas Black suspects or people under the same set of circumstances who have a little bit more melanin would not have enjoyed that kind of privilege. So it's very deep. It's something that is long running. And many people do assume that they're making good faith assumptions when they say things, when they do things, not realizing that we are in a pool of toxic ideas about difference. And anytime we are challenged collectively, we sort of respond with, well, I am doing the right thing and I am being fair. Therefore, insulating us to any critique that would challenge a different way of thinking about the situation.
Before we go, what can we do as a practical response to this? Do we hire more media professionals? Do we get more producers, more people telling the story in terms of print journalists? What do we do?
I think those are great suggestions, but my thought is always we can have representational diversity, but that doesn't tell us about the content of how people are processing. So if we do have more people in the room, more diverse backgrounds, more women in production roles, are these the kinds of people who are going to look at the situation and say, okay, let's check for those implicit biases that we all have. One of the things that science and research has told us is that this is something we all have, and it's not a marker of bad or good. The challenge is, what do we do with this information? How can we unlearn a lot of the systematic things that we've learned about difference. And part of that is rethinking how we understand race. And although it will ruffle many feathers, it means having critical conversations about difference. But we at least have to acknowledge that there are some challenges before we can begin to actively work on it, which, as you pointed out, some elements of our society are diametrically opposed to any conversations that will center racial discourse.
Akil, thanks so much for joining me. Your analysis is so important. We'll continue to come back to these themes that you're talking about, and hopefully have you back in the conversation as we continue to watch what's going on with the Rittenhouse trial. And I love that quote that you gave us. It's hard to fight an enemy who has outposts in your head. That's deep on so many levels. And don't think I ain't peeped that Amos Wilson Blueprint for Black Power in the back on your shelf, man. I love it. Everybody need to check that out. Everybody be sure to join the conversation. We want to hear from you. Head over to our BNC Instagram and Twitter pages to let us know how you feel. Also, visit the website bnc.tv and subscribe to our YouTube channel to check out clips from the show. Coming up later.